Jamie White back with us. Jamie, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Vinny. Thanks for having me.
Here's where I think this trial may end up going for the defense. You know, you've got a lot of evidence that prosecutors have, forensic evidence, et cetera, some level of admission by the defendant. But during some preliminary hearings and pretrial motions and hearings, it seems that the victim in this case had the defendant's DNA on her and also DNA from an unknown male. There's also seems to be some evidence that Susie was spending time at this motel, and it hasn't been clear why she was spending time at that motel, but I'm thinking that's going to be the focus of where the defense may be going here, trying to put Susie on trial and try to point the finger at someone else in this case.
I absolutely agree with you. I think from day one, the only theory that made sense other than Mr. Morris being the deliberate actor in this case, the only deliberate actor, is that there was somebody else involved. Now, I will say the evidence against Mr. Morris is quite compelling as has been presented to date. But what you just described is going to be the way they go. We saw that playing out in the second portion of the preliminary exam. The defense attorney, the prosecutor seemed to make a big hado about one of the samples being a major contributor, one being a minor contributor, but that will fall on its face once the experts testify, because you can draw no conclusions based on the amount of genetic material that is found at a particular location. But they did already seem to be pushing back against this idea of a second person by suggesting that they contributed less DNA than Mr. Morris.
Now, there's also an allegation that this defendant, just prior to meeting up with Susie that night, had downloaded some videos, explicit videos, horrific videos, that I think the prosecution is going to argue what he saw in the videos is what he ended up doing to Susie. To me, that is going to be powerful evidence if it comes in front of this jury.
If it comes in, without going into details on your television show, the behavior that was saw by the detectives, or at least that Mr. Morris was watching prior to his interactions with the victim in this matter, were very, very similar to the physical harm that she appears to have suffered. And for that reason, the judge may just let the jury hear this based on very limited grounds, and that this gentleman had an MO and carried that MO out on this particular night.
Yeah, extremely disturbing and sad, the way all of this played out for Susie. And it's, do you think prosecutors have to explain and tell the story of what was going on in Susie's life? Do you think they have to put it out there to try to, diffuse whatever the defense is going to attempt to do?
I do, Vinny. This young woman is gone, and I know that she has family in this area. This is a very prominent, well-to-do area. But I do think that the background's important, because to leave one to guess what was taking place, presuming they know, the first comments by detectives and sheriffs to the public when this case first broke, they appeared to be holding back information associated with the victim's lifestyle to some degree. And if in fact they have information that can explain why she was in that hotel, and more importantly, why she was in the company of Mr. Morris, I think that will help the jury to understand. And while it may potentially impair her reputation, I think that what happened to her, whoever did it needs to be held accountable. And that's just the price that might have to be paid.
Yeah, I mean, it was a brutal, brutal sexual assault. And then she was burned and set on fire while she was still alive. This is sick, sick stuff.
It's unbelievable. The prosecutors were very crafty in adding the felony murder charge. And I think if you ask them after this trial is over, they were not going to let him escape on a second-degree murder charge and not take any chances. So once that DNA came back, linked him to the sexual assault, the first thing they did was ask the judge in this matter to go back to district court to add the felony murder charge, which, just like first degree, will keep him in prison for the rest of his natural life.
Jamie White, thanks for joining us on this Friday night. Appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Vinny.
All right, folks, we're continuing to track this one. We've got a pretrial hearing August 12th, and right now a trial date of September 7th.